Hey, tonight I want to talk about the Para system. This is a informational hierarchy slash file folder system put together by Tiago from the Forte Labs, right? Forte Labs? Yes, Forte Labs. I've been using it for a little bit over a year now, and so I wanted to dive into it and talk about pros and cons and whether or not you should check it out. Para stands for Projects, Areas, Resources, and Archive. Projects would be very similar to GDT system, where a project is something that has a deadline. It's a unit of work that you can get completed. Areas in Tiago's system is areas of responsibility. It's very similar areas of focus within the GDT system. And that's basically the things that are more ongoing processes that you have to keep track of. They don't have a definitive end like the projects do. And then resources would be ongoing interests, things that you read about or research and that you pull additional information in about. And then archive is when you're done with any of the projects, areas, or resources, you can move that into the archive. And this actually brings me to my first complaint about the system as is. I don't like the idea of having a single collection of an archive. So what I actually do is I actually split up the archive into each of those folders, so that way if I know I have an old project that I want to refer back to, I don't have to go through an entire archive of all things, including resources and areas. I can go right to projects and then archive and then see past projects. At work, I also include an others folder underneath projects, so that if anybody shares a file with me for one of their projects and I might want to reference it in the future, I'll create a folder for that project under others and put their files there. That way I can easily refer to it in the future and it doesn't clutter up the projects I'm actually working on. So that's what I like about the system, is it kind of removes some of the thinking required of where do I put this file, how should I organize it, will I remember where I put it next time I need it. The trouble I sometimes run into is a little bit of confusion between areas of interest or actual resources. Sometimes things can kind of feel like they would fit in either one of those. I usually try to keep my areas much shorter and kind of focused, and then the resources is kind of the long tail of all the other information. So ideally, you want to use the same structure in all the places where you need to organize information. For me, that's my file system, my bookmarks, and then Google Drive. So on my computer under Dropbox, I have the same folder structure. I actually do include another one that is specifically for notes, so text files, and then use the same structure there. It can be a little bit redundant, but I like having my text files separate from any other resources and other files that I might need. And then in Google Drive, I take a lot of notes online and share files with my wife, and so I use the same structure there. And then for my bookmarks, I have a folder for each of the different topics, so that way I can quickly find the things that I'm working on. The problem is it does require some maintenance. You have to remember to bookmark everything, you have to remember to actually go back through and clean up old projects when you're done. Otherwise the system can become stale. But that little bit of maintenance really makes it pay off in the long run. When working with others, you have two options. One is you can let them be completely oblivious to the fact that you're using the system, and every time they share a resource with you, you copy it into your system so that you can be able to find it in the future. Or if you're having a shared system, you try to teach them to have the same structure. And that can be a little confusing unless somebody's also gone through the same research that you have or understands the system as well as you do. So there's some pros and cons associated with that. I think it's beneficial. I try to use the same structure with my wife. She again finds that confusion between resources and areas a little confusing sometimes, but I think overall it helps manage our Google Drive. So would I recommend the system? Yes, I would recommend the system. I think it makes it really easy to know exactly where to put files and kind of takes out some of the thinking of trying to manage things and lets you really focus on actually getting work done. I also think it makes it easy to maintain the system over time. I can easily go into my archives, pull out any of those files and move them to an external drive every quarter or every year, in order to be able to make sure I've got backups with the same structure. If you're interested in learning more, I'll link the blog post on Forte Labs website that goes through the entire system. All right, that's all I have. Have a great night, and I'll see you next week.